Hey, Liam Ward here at LearnTheHarmonica.com. Today I'm going to talk about blues chords. It can be really useful to understand the chords that you're playing over, how they are formed, and then you can start to use that in your soloing. But it can be baffling sometimes. There are some similar terms that can be confused, and so I want to try and break this down and hopefully help you to understand this, because I've had some questions on this. So let's start with this idea of a chord. A chord is a set of notes that are all played at the same time to create a bigger sound, a kind of harmonizing sound. And our job as a harmonica player is to play stuff that's going to sound good with those chords, those sets of notes. We don't always have to play the notes that are part of those chords, but that is a good place to start to understand what those notes are. So usually you'll be playing with a guitarist, sometimes a pianist, and there are other instruments that might play the chords, but let's assume we're talking about a guitar. So with the blues, a standard 12-bar blues is made up of 1, 4 and 5 chords. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the chords are built from the 1st, 4th and 5th degrees of the given key scale. So, without trying to overcomplicate things, let's imagine we're playing in the key of C. So a C blues, the 1 chord would start on a C note. We would build the chord out of that C note. I'm not going to tell you how to build it yet, but we just need to know that our 1 chord is that first note or first degree of the C scale, the note C. Our 4 chord would be the 4th note of the scale. So through the C scale we can go C, D, E, F. So that 4th note F is the chord we're going to build. So we've got our 1 chord C, our 4 chord F, and then our 5 chord C, D, E, F, G. So we've got C, F and G. They are the chords that would make up a C standard blues. Now most blues is built of this 1, 4 and 5 chords in some or another combination. But we don't know at this point the nature of that chord. So we only know the note we're building it on, or the root note. So the note that gives us the roots to then build up or grow the chord from it. So there are all different types of chords that we could play in theory. There are major chords, there are minor chords, there are diminished and augmented chords. There are all sorts of combinations of notes that could make up a chord. So depending on the notes that you choose to put on top of that root note, you will have a completely different sounding chord. So if we take C, if we play a major chord, we would play the root note, so the first degree, the first note of the scale, and we play the 3rd note of the scale and the 5th note of the scale. And that would give us a major sounding chord. If we were to play a minor chord, we'd flatten the 3rd degree of the scale. And that would make it sound minor. It would give it a darker sound. It wouldn't have that lightness, that kind of sprightly sort of sound that you get with a major chord. Now with blues, we're not usually playing major or minor. We're actually playing a different type of chord, and this is really what I want to get to in the crux of this video. So most blues, or the most common chord in blues, is the dominant 7th chord. Okay, now it sounds scary, but we're going to analyze it. So the dominant 7th chord uses a major triad, so those 3 notes I talked about with the major scale, the root, the third and the fifth degree of the scale, and then it adds a flattened seventh degree. So if you go up to the seventh note of the scale and then you flatten it a half step, a semitone, then that completes your seventh chord, your dominant seventh chord. And they're often used interchangeably, those terms, seventh chord and dominant seventh chord. So there are different types of seventh chord, but within blues and pop and rock, it's quite common to just say seventh chord to mean dominant seventh chord. So let's take an example. With a C chord, or a C7 chord, we would build from our C, E and G, so our 1, 3 and 5, and we'd add a flattened seventh degree, okay? So normally the seventh degree of the C scale would be B, but we're going to flatten that to get B flat. So we're going to have C, E, G and B flat. If I play that on my C harmonica, then you can hear those notes. I'm playing one blow, two draw, three draw, half step bend. So that's our dominant seventh chord, or just seventh chord for shorthand. This is a really bluesy chord, and the reason is that it creates tension between major and minor. So the bottom three notes on their own would just be a major chord. If you just played 1, 2 and 3, it's a major sound. But adding that top note, that flattened seventh note, or just flat 7, gives it a slightly different edge. It takes it a bit darker. It introduces this tension that says, well, I'm not fully major, but equally I'm not fully minor, because we've got that third degree, which is kind of a major sounding note. So it's that beautiful tension between the two, and that's at the root of a lot of the tension and therefore the interest and the just great sound of blues music. So that's why you'll find it all over in blues music. So this can be really useful for soloing, because if you understand the notes that you're playing over, you can start to replicate those on the harmonica. And if you're able to do that for the different chords, the 1, 4 and the 5 chord, then you're able to play stuff that's suitable for the chords you're playing over. Now, you don't always have to play those notes, but it can be useful to understand them. So just to recap, a dominant seventh chord is the common chord in the blues that is built from the first, third, fifth and flattened seventh degrees of the scale. Now, dominant seventh chords are often called seventh chords, just plain and simple. That's just a common thing that we do in the blues. And then the term flat 7 or flattened seventh refers to that top note in that chord, which gives it that tension between major and minor, adding a bit of kind of spice to those other notes that sit below it. If you're playing a C harmonica in second position, so you're playing it in the key of G, the three chords that you'll be playing over would be the G, C and D. So we're playing in the key of G, our 1, 4 and 5 chords are G, C and D. If you wanted to play the notes of those scales, or the arpeggios, so that just means playing the sequence of notes from a chord, then they would be the following. So the G chord, or G7 chord, would be G, B, D, F. So that's our 2 draw, 3 draw, 4 draw, 5 draw. And then the C, which we just looked at earlier in the video, would be our 1 blow, 2 draw and 3 draw half step bend. And then our D7, 1 draw, 2 draw half step bend, 3 draw full step bend and 4 blow. And if you started playing those in the sequence of a 12-bar blues, immediately that sounds like a blues. All I'm doing is playing the arpeggios, playing the notes that would make up those dominant seventh chords. But you can hear how that is what is keeping that blues together. It's that set of notes, and it's just because I'm replicating what would be played if you were playing the chords. You can of course take it a lot further than that, start to play with these, mix them up, add extra notes, make things a lot more interesting. And if you'd like to do that, then take a free trial of my harmonica school, where I've got courses all about playing blues harmonica, from absolute basics to advanced stuff. I have an improvisation course all about soloing, different approaches to soloing, as well as loads of stuff on techniques and the foundations of playing, bending, etc, etc. There's a link in the description to check out a free trial of that. I hope to see you in the school. I hope this has been useful for you today. Let me know in the comments if you have any more questions. I'll try and answer them as best I can. And good luck with your practice. Cheers.